Has his hands in everything. He's an educator. He has a doctorate degree in philosophy and comparative religion. He's published. He runs the operations for the Dalai Lama Foundation in Africa. He's part of the UN Peace Conflict Resolution. He runs a private school. He's an educator and realized that in order for him to make a difference in education, he needs to teach his own school. And he's never been to the United States. He will speak to you. He's got 45 minutes with you. He will speak to you for about 25 minutes or so, and then he will field questions for the latter half of the 15-20 minutes. He's very humble, and he does not mind being asked questions. So he's all yours. Please do. I won't take any more of your time. I'm going to sneak out and I'll be right back.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a privilege being here. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to share a few experiences with you. Interestingly, I'm meeting two people again who spoke earlier, and I'm very happy. So we can build from where we started. Now, looking at the time, I have just 25 minutes, and I'm just wondering what I will share with you, whether you are interested in political developments in Nigeria, or economic issues, or cultural issues. But let me just give you a little background, and then from the questions we can engage even much more. I said in some of the classes that those of you in this part of the world, especially in the United States, you are exposed to so much information at your disposal that there is a temptation to even get confused in the kind of choices you make. You are bombarded by information, information technology, everything is available. Look at the way your classrooms are. Some of us graduated from the universities, I have to be honest with you. Until after I finished my first degree, I never saw a computer. Until I was educated from primary till I finished my first degree, I never saw a computer. Even as I'm talking to you now, when you get to Nigeria, those of us who own laptops are considered to be among the privileged few today. So you have so much at your disposal that there is a tendency to get confused because the information coming is so much. Which one will I choose? So while your own problem will be the problem of choice, our own problem is a problem of access. We have very limited access to information, and within this limit, we are able to make hard choices. And some of those hard choices may not be good for our lives. I just wanted to mention that quickly and to let you know that maybe most of what I'm going to say, maybe you have access to it. I was surprised to see this. Because this was when I went to Nairobi. I was invited by the United Nations office in Nairobi on the International Day of Peace. And the information, you already have me there. So most of what is happening in Nigeria is also available to you on the internet. But the only advantage is when you have someone coming directly to talk to you or share experiences, it makes more meaning because I'm coming directly from that context. So I will give you a practical experience of what is going on with us. So I want to thank you most sincerely for being here. This is my first time in the US. I've traveled around Africa much. That is our continent, so it's easy to go around. My first trip out of Africa was to India in 2007. So coming here is really the biggest trip of my life, and I'm very, very thankful. What I've experienced in Valencia in the past 3 days, I'm really, really overwhelmed with what I've seen. Let me take education for example. What I'm seeing happening with your professors and you students here is unimaginable. The quality of structures here. I don't know about the content that is given to you anyway because I've not seen whatever the curriculum. But you have no reason whatsoever not to do well here. Honestly, you have no reason whatsoever not to do well. The reason being that you have everything. Now, if our young men in Nigeria can have access to just 30%, or maybe less than 30% of the access you have, they will be 100 times ahead of you. Do you know why? In the midst of the challenges and the increasing and ravaging poverty that we are confronted with, young people are still determined and committed to learning and moving forward. When you have the opportunity to come to Africa, not just Nigeria, this is an African trend. Anywhere across Africa you go, it is basically the same. You see the struggle, the determination on the faces of young people to make it in life. Now, rather than these challenges that confront us every day to discourage us and make us to sit down and begin to complain. Okay, I can't do anything. Nobody cares for me. Nobody is taking care of me. How can I move on with my life? Young people don't get discouraged. It looks as if, especially for me, I take myself as an example all the time. From what I experienced in my childhood, growing up, and that is the experience of so many young people in Africa. I lost my dad when I was just very, very little. And we were 3 of us. And when he died, my mother could not bear the difficulty of bringing us up. So she had to marry a second husband. And in the second husband, she gave birth to four kids there. And we had to move with her to the new husband. And it was quite challenging. But despite these things, my mother had to do a lot of things, including, you don't use firewood here at all. So maybe you don't even know what firewood is. I don't know, some of you don't even know how food is cooked. You just have it available for you to eat. But for us, in order to cook food, we have to go to the bush, because it's not everybody who has access to gas. Many of us don't even use electricity. I was just sharing with them, if you stay for a week without electricity and you have electricity the following week, you will go and celebrate and thank God. That is really good now. But since I came here, I have not seen electricity go off for 1 second. And I begin to wonder, so what is wrong? So for you to eat food, you have to go to the bush, cut down firewood, and come and make fire, and you cook the food, the whole pot, you know, it becomes black and all those things, and we enjoy that because we don't have any option. This is the reality that we have to confront and keep working and never giving up, hoping that one day we will get to the point where you are. But everything is here. So I was trying to use that to talk about education. That I'm saying that you have no reason whatsoever not to do well. You have the best professors, you have the best facilities, and everything is there. It's just for you to make yourself available. And even in the process of learning, there are a lot of options that are open for you. It looks as if the system is quite flexible, that you can make several choices. In our own case, it's not that way. It's not that way at all. You are limited. The number of subjects and the kind of courses you have to offer, everything is already determined for you. And every student has to follow that path. And the whole essence of our educational system, as it is obtainable now, is geared towards preparing young people to acquire the certificates. Now, once they get the certificates, the next thing is to go into the job market, get a job, with the expectation that the jobs will get them money, and once they get the money, they will enjoy the good life. But the problem is that the jobs are not even there. The jobs are not there. It is not the responsibility, and this is my understanding. I may be wrong, I don't know. But I feel it is not the responsibility of the government to create jobs for its citizens. Government cannot create jobs for its citizens. The duty of the government is to create an enabling environment for private sector participation. It is the private sector that builds the economy. When the industries are working, the industries will employ young people, and there will be less unemployment in the society. So the job of the government is to create the environment, enabling environment, by making sure that there is constant power supply, because that is what drives the industries, and that is what drives the economy. The job of the government is to make sure that schools are available so that young people can have access, and not just access, but quality. The job of the government is to be able to create roads and provide the social amenities that citizens can enjoy a good life. But once the government fails to do that and takes up the responsibility of providing jobs for its citizens, it has failed. And that is why you find many of our young people unemployed, because the government is trying to create jobs for them, and the government is not able to create jobs sufficiently enough to meet the demands. Therefore, you have hundreds of thousands of young people roaming the streets without jobs. And that is increasing the level of crime and criminality and violence in the country. You find that our population is 167 million, based on the recent census, that national census. And I always tell people that for me, I think that is even a conservative figure, because I definitely know Nigeria's population is much more than that. Even within the state and city I live, we have a high population, and it's not one of the most populated in the country. So if we take at 1 million, we are told that 75% of Nigeria's population is young people. But we will have it on statistics that about 80% of young people who should be either in school or gainfully employed are neither in school nor gainfully employed. So what happens to them? Where do they go to if they cannot go to school? What do they do if they are looking for jobs and the jobs are not there? The answer clearly is violence, because they have to survive. When they wake up, they must eat. And so some of them turn to robbery and do all sorts of things just to survive. Many of our young people are doing the things they do now because they want it. It is because they cannot find the opportunities they are looking for. And you can't expect a young man to keep moving from one corner of the street to another hungry. We say back home that a hungry man is an angry man. And when he gets hungry, he becomes angry and he can't do anything. When I graduated my first degree in 1998, I spent 3 years moving from one office to another looking for the job I wanted. I didn't get it. So I ended up picking up a teaching job, not because I wanted it, but that was the only option for me. And I needed that job in order to put food on the table for myself and for my wife and family. Because the teaching job doesn't pay back home. So even if you have the best degrees, as long as you are a teacher, you are the worst paid. Nobody recognizes a teacher. So I didn't even want that in the first place. But I thank God, getting into the classroom, I discovered my calling. I discovered my purpose and my meaning in life. That my purpose is in the classroom. And I love it. But these are the challenges that confront us. And one key factor that is responsible for that is purely corruption. The level of corruption in our country is so overwhelming. The rot is beyond description. Nigeria is among, or should be, among the richest countries in the world. We are so blessed in terms of natural resources and the rich human potentials that we have. The human resilience. We have all these things. But our inability to mobilize and utilize these resources properly has been a major problem. I'm sure you know that Nigeria is the 6th largest producer of oil in the world. And you know, oil is what is sustaining the economy of several nations now. And there are large deposits of oil in all over Nigeria. And before oil was discovered, agriculture accounted for over 80% of our GDP. But immediately oil was discovered, we abandoned agriculture. So when you go to Nigeria now, everybody is moving towards the oil industry. You find graduates of political science, they want to work in the oil industry. You find graduates of education, is oil industry. If they don't go into the oil industry, they want to go to the banking sector because that is where they think people are making it. So much wealth. But unfortunately, 90% of our wealth is in the hands of 10% of Nigerians. And those who are wealthy, and that is ill-gotten wealth, those who are truly wealthy in Nigeria, they are so wealthy and rich that you can put them side by side with the richest people. I was going through the international news sometimes, and they were listing the wealthiest people on earth, like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and this new Mexican guy, I've forgotten the name. I just looked at the list and I laughed. I said there is something the Western media does not know. Because if we are able to capture people who are really wealthy, you will see Nigerians right at the top, more wealthier than all these Bill Gates. The reason why it is easier to capture this here is that the system is so transparent that when you have a government official, if you have somebody you have elected in office now, everybody knows the salary, the income of that public office holder, is it not so? So if he's living above his income, the citizens will question him or her. That is how transparent your system is. But our own case is not like that. Therefore, people get into political positions and use that as an opportunity to embezzle as much as they can. I will give you one good example to show you that you can count Nigerians among the wealthiest people in the world. We had a head of state who died in 1998. I love saying this thing because I'm always amazed to see that human beings celebrate the death of their leader. So when this head of state died, there were wide jubilations on the streets of Nigeria, as if Nigeria won the World Cup. You know, that is the best thing we like. When it comes to soccer, you know, Nigerians are really good in soccer. If our soccer team is winning, there will be peace all over Nigeria. Nobody will point accusing fingers at anybody. But the moment we play a soccer game and lose, woo, this guy did not score because he's a Muslim. These Muslims don't know how to play. That is the problem. And we had wide jubilations. I don't know how football, soccer, brings us so much together like that. But when he died, people celebrated because, you know, he was a dictator. And under dictatorship, so many freedoms are suppressed. People are not free to express themselves and make demands on the government. Those who had the courage to express themselves were either arrested and thrown into prison. The unfortunate ones were killed. The other ones who were lucky enough escaped, ran away from the country. So when he died, we celebrated, including myself. I was not celebrating because he died, but I was celebrating that at least this dictator is out. Hopefully we will get a better person. And it was after his death that a discovery was made that this guy, this head of state, I don't want to tell you how he died because it's not a good commentary on our nation. So let me just keep that, because he died in the most unfortunate way. But when he died, it was discovered that in one account, only in one bank account, he had stolen and stashed 1 trillion pounds. Does anybody understand what 1 trillion pounds is? Because I can't understand that. 1 trillion pounds. I don't even know what trillion means. I've never counted up to trillion, so I don't understand it.
1,000 billions.
1,000 billions.
1,000.
You can just imagine. And one person, that is not all. That was in just one account. 1 trillion pounds. Sorry, please. In the second account, they discovered he has stashed away $20 billion. At least I can understand dollars, because I'm in the US now, and I understand the exchange rate. But $20 billion is not small money by our own standard. It's money that we save and make life better for 100 generations. 100 generations of people. $20 billion. That was what it did. So if we put the two accounts together, one person, is that money not as much or much more than what Warren Buffett has? Probably. I don't know. But this, what I'm sharing with you, is only part of what was discovered. And if that was discovered, I'm sure there was much more that he's stashed away for his family that is enjoying it now. I don't know whether that is enjoyment. And it is happening. I'm just giving you one example. And there are many more of these 10% who are enjoying that. Because our system is not so transparent that we demand accountability from our leaders. We have excellent laws. Our constitution is molded, even after your own. Our constitution is molded after the American Constitution, so to say. So the kind of government that we run, I have a lot of confusions there also. I'm not a politician, so I've been trying to figure out the kind of government we run, a democracy, combining what you call the parliamentary system. We have both the parliamentary system and the presidential system. That is what we are running. I don't know how we're able to balance that together, but the political leaders, they know how to maneuver their ways out. But the excellent laws that we have, the problem is with implementation. So you see that the law says this, but in fact we are doing another thing different. And that strengthens those who have the desire to embezzle our wealth, because they can do anything they want to do and go scot-free. Nothing will happen to them. I was sharing an example, I think is it with the other class. I said before I arrived here, on the 26th, the week before I arrived, and this is a very true story. I even have the newspaper cut in my bag. I would have shown you if I came here with it. You know, there are people who serve government and they get to a certain age where they have to retire. And if they retire, the government normally pays them money we call gratuity. And then on a monthly basis, they receive another payment called pensions. It is not really much, but reasonable enough to sustain them at their old age. But someone in charge of the pension administration fund administration, this money that was supposed to go to these fathers, old people, who have retired, to at least enjoy their old age and die in peace. One person stole 23 billion of the money. 23 billion naira. He stole the money. And many of these old people are dying there. So he was arrested, taken to court, convicted, and to be sent to prison. What the lawyers did, or is it the judge? What the judge did was to give him an option to pay a fine. You know how much the fine? 150,000 naira. So he will either go to jail or pay a fine of 150,000 naira. This is for somebody who stole 23 billion of public money. So what the young man or the gentleman, if he's actually gentle, what he will do is to take 150,000 naira out of the money he stole and pay the fine. And he took a little of it, got the best lawyers to defend him. And that is all. He's walking free on the streets now. But that same week, I'm telling you, this is fact. That same week, a young man who was so terribly hungry, and he needed something to eat. He couldn't get it because he didn't have a job. And out of frustration, he went to his neighbor's house and stole his neighbor's chicken. And this young man was arrested, taken to court, and is now sent to prison where he will serve 3 years. 3 years jail for stealing chicken because he was hungry. But here we have someone who stole old people's money of 23 billion and is walking free on the streets. And you will be surprised when it is time for elections, and we are moving closer to election time now, this same person will use that money and buy his way through. Because as long as you have the money to spread around, nobody cares. They will give you chieftaincy titles. They will invite you to the village and give you the highest title in the land because you are spreading money. That is what is happening. So the laws are actually there to check corruption, but are we actually checking corruption? No. And if we have this kind of increasing corruption, it becomes practically impossible to move forward as a nation. Because that hinders development, that hinders growth. That is why we don't have the schools. Young people who want to go to school, the schools are not there for them. Even those who are fortunate to go to school, the quality of what they get in the school is not enough for the challenges of the 21st century. So what do? The resources are there. Now, if we are not having problems and challenges of resources, we are having problems of religious divide. Nigeria is the most country in the world. I don't know the kind of adjective we use to use here, but it's at least in Africa. I don't know in other parts of the world. But as far as Africa is concerned, Nigeria is the only country where religion becomes a major factor in determining who becomes what. So if I want to contest for any political office, all I need to do is to put forward my religious credentials. Okay, I'm a Muslim or I'm a Christian. And if I'm a Muslim, all the Muslims will come out to vote for me. After all, he's one of us. Now, it doesn't matter whether I have the credentials in terms of the vision, the manifesto, and the focus that the nation requires in order to move forward. Do I have what it takes to drive the nation towards recovery and development? Nobody questions that. They will ask, okay, what religion? The Christians will go and vote for the Christian, and the Muslim goes to vote for the Muslim. Though it is not a problem that started today, it's a long history. It's a long history. But the important thing is not the challenges that we face. It's not the problems that confront us as human beings. I think for me the most important thing in life is the deliberate efforts we make to overcome the challenges that we confront. So if we look at the long history of this problem, we have not made any effort in overcoming that. So rather than the problem disappearing, because we have not done anything, it is increasing. It is increasing by day, every day. And we are beginning to experience more conflicts resulting to violence and crisis here and there. So the issue of religion is huge, If we are, yeah.
Take a couple of minutes and wrap up and allow them to
Okay.
ask you questions.
Yeah. And then just finally, can you permit me to speak?
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, it's okay.
The poor guy's been standing since the this morning.
Yeah. If we are not dealing with these issues, we are dealing with the issue of regionalism, regional integration. Is he from the north? Is he from the south? If he is from the north, yes, that is our man. If he is not, no, we don't want him. Whether he has the credentials is not important, because we want somebody from our own state or from our own region to represent us. And we have the feeling that once someone from our own state or region is there at the top, he's representing us, and he will attract federal government presence to us. By attracting federal government, that means the gentleman that we have sent to represent us will bring back those things, He will steal the money, come back, and then make sure that we get our own share. We have this term we use in Nigeria called the national cake. So federal appointment means going to share the national cake. The wealth of Nigeria is described in terms of the national cake. So everybody has to go with a knife and cut off whatever he or she can cut. So once you are elected into political office, that is the opportunity to grab your own share of the national cake. So the easiest way to become a wealthy man in Nigeria now is through politics. Become a politician and get elected. And once you're there, you make your money and go. Nobody will ask you. So long, people will only ask if you do not come back to share the money with people. But once you steal the money and you are able to distribute it, give people, you are the right man. And they will look for you to elect you all the time. So the process of accountability is not there. Checks and balances. It's not that we don't have the laws. And the sad part of the whole aspect is that there are a lot of Nigerians. Nigeria has the highest number of PhDs you can find in Africa. I'm telling you, because of our population. It's not because we have the best universities, no. The best universities in Africa are in South Africa and Egypt. By the latest ranking, no Nigerian university is up to the 5th. The first 2 are in South Africa, and the next 3 up to number 5 are in Egypt. So no Nigerian university has crossed the top 5. So you have the best there, but in terms of number of graduates, first degrees, master's level, PhDs, and professors, there are so many. So there are a lot of Nigerians who are qualified, but the system is such that merit is not promoted. The system is such that only mediocres are thrown up. If you are the good person who has the qualification and you attempt to come up, you will be suppressed and your life will be in danger. So you see that many of the qualified people will never go into politics. Never. If you want to be alive and enjoy the little things of life that the environment offers, don't attempt going into politics in Nigeria. Because if you do, it is easy way you are inviting yourself to the grave, easier. Because those politicians, the mediocres who have been in power for quite a long time and have enjoyed the benefits of stolen wealth, will never want to get out and give other people the chance. For example, when I was in primary school, I finished my primary school in 1983. The person who was the head of state in 1983, the military dictator in 1983, General Muhammadu Buhari, today in 2013, is the same person who is still contesting to become a president. He's almost 80 years old. That is what, and that all of them, they have been recycling. I was asking myself a few questions a few days ago. I said, the president of the most powerful nation on earth, America, is just a few years older than myself, Barack Obama. He's in his early 40s. Is it not so? Obama is in his early 40s. Am I right?
No, it's late 40s.
Late 40s. Even if it is in late 40s, he's just a few years older than me because I am 40 now. So Obama is not up to 50. The Prime Minister of Britain is also in his 40s. But in our own case, and in Africa generally, it is only in Africa that you have people who want to perpetuate themselves into power and die on the seat. So we have people who have been in power 40 years. People who have been as president 30 years. Even before I was born, they were there. And they want to remain there till they die. So when you keep having this circle, and if it gets to a point where it becomes practically impossible for them to perpetuate themselves in power, they make sure that they get either their sons or relations to occupy those positions. So it's just the same as they are the ones. So they keep cycling. So we don't get the best. It's happening all over Africa. Instead of giving people people to inject fresh ideas and innovation into governance so that we can see change taking place, it's not happening.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides English, the 3 major languages are San, Yoruba. Which one do you speak? Besides the 3 major languages, which one do you speak?
English is the lingua franca, the official language of instruction and communication. So I speak 4 languages in Nigeria. The 3 major ones, Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba, and my own native language, which is TIV. So I speak 4. But these are local Nigerian languages. You can't speak them anywhere outside Nigeria. Yeah. Yes.
When you're going through school in Nigeria, do they teach you about political science? Or is that not put out there because of the corruption?
Very good. Our system of education that we run It's called the 6-3-3-4. 6 years in the primary, 3 years in the junior secondary, 3 years in high school, what you call high school here, senior secondary, and then 4 years of tertiary education, that is in the university. Political science is taught only in the universities because it's a degree program. You don't find political science taught any other place except in the universities. It's a 4-year degree program. So you can't learn political science in high school. They don't do that. Yeah. Yes.
Do you think the problem with students now finding jobs like this, do they turn to, like, you know, gang violence or like poaching? Is poaching big in your country, or like gang violence?
No, it's not actually because they turn to those things. The lack of jobs makes them turn to those things. Because the jobs are not available. So if the jobs were available, I can tell you very, very confidently because I come from that background. So I know who Nigerians are, especially young people. Young Nigerians are very hardworking. Very, very hardworking. In the midst of these challenges, you see young people determined and struggling to make it. But when they cannot find the opportunities, they become frustrated. And so they start engaging themselves in all these things, all in an attempt to survive. This is the survival instinct that drives most of us to do the kind of things that we do.
You said that it's not so much the laws that are made, but the implementation.
Yes.
In your opinion, what do you think the implementation needs to be done in Nigeria to bring it up to, say, you know, the U.S.?
Yeah, that is going to be quite difficult, but I think it is still very possible. But it looks like a very distant possibility. It will take us a very long time to get to the level where the U.S. is. But I think for me, the starting point will be the building of credible institutions. Democracy thrives on institutions. It's not just on people. Because the U.S. president today was not the president a few years ago. And in a few years' time, he will no longer be the president. But if we have credible and very strong and reliable democratic institutions, when the individuals come and go, the institutions remain. And that is what strengthens democracy. So for us too, in order to move forward, we must, as a deliberate policy, begin to look at our institutions. And that is where the problem lies. We are having many of the challenges because our institutions, even the legal system, whatever, they are not strong enough in order to sustain or carry justice. So the criminal justice system, for example, is very, very porous, very weak and corrupt. And so there's so many areas of our national life. So the building of institutions, citizenship education, and as citizens become more and more aware of their rights and responsibilities and their expectations, and they begin to place demands on their leaders, we will begin to see changes. Two, the process through which our leaders emerge must also be critically looked into. We must examine that and ensure that that process becomes very clear, credible, and transparent, so that we can have the right people emerging as leaders. Then we can begin to see the kind of changes. But to get to that level, we have to deal with the institutions first.
Yeah, I heard you speak of a few problems like corruption and the education in Nigeria. What do you think, how do you think the U.S. can help with those problems in Nigeria?
It will interest you to know, and I want to say this very, very happily, that the U.S. has been one of Nigeria's greatest supporters in several areas, a lot of areas. We have a lot of international agencies by the U.S. government supporting Nigeria. We have the United States Institute for International Development, you said, doing a lot of work in HIV/AIDS and reproductive health. We have the International Republican Institute promoting democratic culture in all over the world, including Nigeria. And other non-profits like Search for Common Grounds, they are all over doing the best they can to support us. But the problem still goes down to the institutions I talk about. No matter and this is from my experience, a lot of money has gone out of the US into our country. I have to be honest with you. I've seen a lot of that. Because in addition to the academic work that I do in school, I also run a non-profit that is directly involved in peace building and interfaith dialogue. And I see a lot of that happening. A lot of money has left the shores of the US into Nigeria. But that money has ended up in pockets of people. Because there are no strong institutions to ensure that this money is properly applied. So the more money the US government puts into supporting and ensuring that there is a decrease in the rate of HIV infection, we are having more and more because this money is not going directly to the areas required. So support is already there. So I think what the US government will need to do, can I tell you one secret? And for those of you who are very close to the US government, it is your own government. I think you can help us do that. The secret is this. Most of our leaders in Africa take decisions when they have international pressures on them. So, for example, if the US government pressurizes them and applies pressures on them to take certain decisions, you find them taking those decisions quickly. The reason why they do it is that the leaders are also selfish. They believe that if they decide to take the decisions and follow what the US government, for example, says, they can make more money from there. But one good side of it is those pressures apply, positive pressures, because we've seen areas where foreign governments also help us and help our leaders to do the wrong things. We have seen that a lot. But if pressure can be applied positively for the right reasons, their leaders will wake up also. Because we are in a globalized society. Oh, yes, sir.
What kind of a presence do U.S. corporations have?
Sorry, I didn't.
What kind of presence do U.S. corporations have in Nigeria? I'm assuming that our oil companies are there.
Yes.
What about other companies?
Oil company, I think there are a few in the road construction, though the major player in that area is Julius Berger, which is from Germany. But most of the US companies are major players in the oil industry. Now there is a lot of drama going on in the oil industry in Nigeria. It's a very complex situation. And most of the unfunny things in terms of environmental degradation going there, the oil companies need to take the blame 100%. The judgment that was issued at the International Criminal Court recently, that judgment actually favored Shell, and Shell has done a lot of terrible things. If you happen to go to the Niger Delta, people cannot drink water. There is no clean water. They cannot fetch water to drink, because wherever you fetch water, it is oil. The whole area has been polluted. They cannot farm because the soil is no longer conducive for agriculture. They cannot fish because even many of the fishes are dying because the water has been polluted by oil. This is not stories. It's my country, and I've been around that area. I've seen it a lot. But the funny thing is that the oil companies connive with the local chiefs who are so greedy, and they don't care about what happens to their citizens or their subjects. So long as these oil companies pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars, they settle them. Once the oil companies settle them, the case is closed. Nothing happens. So sometimes in that area, I think many of the oil companies, I think foreign governments sometimes have selfish interest when they intervene in what happens in other countries. I'm sorry to say that especially for us in Africa, what we see a lot happening is a lot of exploitation. When you see foreign governments coming to intervene in what is going in our internal affairs, if you study very carefully, you see the level of interest I studied very carefully to see what happened in Libya. The ease and speed with which the international community went into Libya is because some foreign governments were actually not comfortable with the leader himself, Gaddafi. It was clear. There was more than that is happening in Syria now. So apart from the presence of Gaddafi, there is so much oil in Libya. Syria does not have that kind of oil Libya has. But worse atrocities are being committed in Syria now. And you can see the length of time it took foreign governments to begin to speak against what is happening in Libya. A lot has been happening in Bahrain. And a lot of foreign powers are strongly in support of what is happening in Bahrain, giving a lot of support to Saudi Arabia to push troops into Bahrain. I studied this a lot, and I make comparisons. Why is this happening? If it happened, why selective justice? If it happened to this, why not this? Why do you choose this one? So, anyway, international politics, there is a lot of interest in international politics. But when we play international politics at the expense of people's lives, I don't think that is the right thing to do.
Do you guys have an army or police force, and
Yeah,
are
we
they
do.
corrupt
We
too?
do.
Are they corrupt or?
As far as corruption is concerned, it permeates every sector of our national life. You can't select one arm and say this is exonerated. This is the same. So like what I even said, I think earlier, the kind of leaders we get is a reflection of the kind of society we have. So if the society becomes good, we will get good leaders.
We have time for one more question.
I'm sure you've heard the problems that we're having here with our budget. And one of the things that came up is the aid help that we give to other countries and the efficiency in which the money is distributed. What can the countries like the U.S. who give aid to Nigeria do to ensure that the money gets to the people that need it instead of, I mean, are there organizations that the countries can go through other than the government?
I will try as much as possible to avoid the first part of the question so that I will not be dragged into American politics. I've been very, very careful.
Over, you can.
Yes. The only thing I can say to that, like I talked about building strong institutions, the amount of money that leaves the shores of U.S., for example, into our country, I know that because not only our governments are corrupt, I also work in the civil society because I run a non-profit. It's funny enough, if you would know, that even the civil society itself in Nigeria is not free from corruption. So it's very difficult to look at one arm of the society and say, okay, we may choose not to give the money to the government.